Welcome to this All Clear special. Today we're going to be talking about young leadership in the fire service. Please enjoy as we interview several of the up-and-coming young leaders in the fire service here in the state of North Carolina. We'll look at their challenges, their mistakes, and what's helped shape their view of leadership and what we can learn from it. Enjoy.
My name's Quentin Cash. I go by Q. I am a battalion chief at the Shelby Fire and Rescue Department. Been there for a little over 19 years, closing in on 20. Rose through the ranks, was a firefighter, engineer, captain, then a battalion chief. So I've served in every role and been a battalion chief for about 10 years. I'm actually been in the fire service for 24 years. Been a volunteer at Chervor. I serve as assistant chief over volunteers and handle the training and safety fire department.
My name is Rosalinda. I work full-time for East Lincoln Fire Department, and I also work part-time for the Huntersville Fire Department. I recently just got promoted to Firefighter 2, and I ride full-time on the back of Ladder 31 here at East Lincoln.
My name's Henry Parham. I go by Alex. I'm a captain with the City of Concord Fire Department. I ride Ladder 10. I'm also a member of the Apple Township, which is in Rowan County. I have my relief battalion task book right now and have the ambition to eventually work my way up to a chief level with the City of Concord Fire Department.
I'm April King with the Concord Fire Department. I'm an engineer for Engine 9A. I've been an engineer for a couple years, but I've been on the Concord Fire Department now 10. So very exciting to have my 10th anniversary.
My name is Jennifer Livers, and I work at the Mebane Fire Department in North Carolina. So I do have kind of multiple roles where I am at. I started with the department as the secretary to the fire chief. Since then, I've taken on other roles with our fire life safety department, with our Safe Kids program, and just recently took over as the Safe Kids coordinator in the county. I do the budgeting for the fire department along with the fire chief. We are kind of a small department. But we are actually in the top 10 in North Carolina as far as growth. So we do have a lot of looking ahead of us as far as education, prevention in the community, any kind of partnerships.
I'm Captain Melanie Jordan at Concord Fire Department. I'm currently assigned to Station 6, so I am over the ARF trucks here at Concord Paget Regional Airport. I've been in the fire service I've been here at the city for 23 years, and I was a volunteer prior to that, so about 25, 26 years.
Leadership, it can be many things. I've been a couple leadership roles before I came here, but I really think a lot of it comes down to just having a open mind, being willing to work with different people, and then just being also a role model to those that are around you, not just to your crew, but to everybody that you're working with, like showing up on time, wearing the uniform properly, and being also willing to teach.
My definition of leadership is I feel like it's encouraging and empowering others to do things maybe they wouldn't normally have the confidence to try or do. And I feel like you have to do that with a positive attitude, because some leaders may try to lead with a negative attitude and that doesn't work out well. But as long as you lead with a positive attitude, leadership doesn't necessarily mean a title or a rank. It's being an influencer, to encourage those around you and be beneficial for everyone.
Leadership. I think leadership's easy to define, and I think John Maxwell does it really good. Leadership is really influence. Whether you get your people to do what you need them to do when you need them to do it. My actual favorite example, though, probably comes from Walt Disney. and I'm going to have to pull it up on my phone to read it because it's too long for me to remember. But he says, whatever you do, do it well. Do it so well that when people see you do it, they will want to come back and see you do it again. And they will want to bring others and show them how well you do what you do. And I think that's the epitome of leadership. You got people seeing you do stuff so well that other people want to come work for you. And that defines leadership to me.
To me, being a leader and leadership is serving others and setting a positive example to your team, also supporting your team, but creating an environment where everybody on your team can also succeed along with your programs that you may have. It's not just about guiding people, but about building trust in your department, and also empowering those to be able to use their strengths and pull more of their strengths out and put that into the community to make the community safer. It's about inspiring and supporting those that you work with, and also keeping your department's goal, your mission.
Leadership is found in multiple different ways. And people talk about the style of servant to helicoptering where you're looking over everybody. But in reality, a fire service leader is somebody who motivates, empowers, and encourages their crew to be the best. So somebody who can dictate which style of leadership they need for each scenario makes a really good fire service leader.
I would say that a leader is someone that not just is a sayer, but is also a doer. So they tell you what to do, but then they also show you by example. I would say that I expect the best of them. It's their best effort. Sometimes, hey, we're all human. We're all going to stumble. Sometimes we're going to trip and fall, but we all need to stand back up, dust off, and keep digging. So I would say that just to keep going, don't stop. And if the rest of us do have a bad day and we stumble, to help us stand back up and keep going as well.
So that's kind of a double-edged sword there. You have to think the fire service is more than just going to calls. We only go to fires maybe 2% of the time. So you have to be a leader that can adapt and overcome depending on what situation you're in. That's making the daily to going to the store to the working incident that we talked about, that 2%. So when it comes to priorities, you have to really think about what situation you're in. So your priority may be very low and you're going to the store trying to figure out what you're eating for the day. And then your priority of a leadership can be really high when you're on the scene of a working fire.
As a leader, expectations, I think, is one of the most important, if not the most important thing we can do for our crews. The reason I say that is because I'm an exerciser and a runner. You think about comparing it to running a race. You know, expectations are the finish line. If we don't set expectations, how do we know how to run the race? And how I actually do that, I spend the first training night at both our career department and my volunteer department of going over my expectations. I have a short PowerPoint that talks about our mission, our values, our goals, our objectives that we're going to have for the year. I also go over, what my personal expectations are. And I think as a leader, if you're not setting high expectations, your people are not going to make the mark. If you let them just go along with their day-to-day processes and don't have high expectations, then they're not going to be high achievers, because people want to follow good leaders, and good leaders do that for their employees. They set that finish line of saying, here's what we want to do, here's what we want to be, and here's where we want to go.
Being at a slower station, you sometimes have to find some way to fill the gap between the calls and not doing anything, the training. So something that I have found to be a screw up, we can say, is sometimes not finding the best way to fill that gap. That is something that I've accepted and know that's happening, and ultimately try to figure out the best way to do that. And that comes from training to going and get ice cream for the guys at night because they've done a great job during the day, to just riding around. People want to get out and see their district.
Whenever I was beginning my role, I think one of the biggest things for me one of my biggest failures was trying to take on everything. I kind of had a vision on what I wanted things to be, and it got to where I was kind of stretching myself thin. So I have kind of learned that everybody in the department can help and assist. So it's really important for me to learn to kind of delegate some of my responsibilities so that I don't stretch myself too thin. And also, sharing responsibility can help others in my department and my team grow, and it can kind of help them to succeed with me along as the team and in the community.
I think we learn more from when we mess up than when we get things right a lot of times. Probably one of my worst was to remember that you always need to investigate and find out the multiple sides to every story, because in the fire service as well as I do, there's multiple sides to every story. We had an incident where a fire truck drove off the road, got stuck in the mud on the way to a call, and had to call me over the radio as Battalion 1 on Ops 1. Hey, Chief, I need you to get out here and I need a tow truck. And let me tell you, a 15-minute ride to where they were going and stuck in the mud, I was irate when I got out of the fire truck. The least thing you should do, but I was absolutely pissed off. Get there, the engineer is covered in mud because he's trying to get the truck unstuck, and it's stuck. We did have to use a tow truck to get it out, but I immediately lit into him. I regret that to this day because I did not know the whole story. The father was actually on a four-wheeler. A four-wheeler was on fire, and their father caught fire and was in bad shape, and they were only about a quarter mile off the road. Well, the family told them the gravel went all the way down to where they were riding the four-wheelers at, which it did not. So it was just a bad incident that I did not handle well, and I learned to always take a deep breath. Not only that, think before I speak and make sure I find out all sides before I jump to conclusions.
So I like to use this as a teaching moment. My biggest screw up was not necessarily when I was in the captain's role, but I was a captain working a hire back as an engineer. So I was driving the truck that day, and I was super excited to be driving again because I didn't get to do that much as a captain. And in a nutshell, I ran a red light and caused an accident. And it's not something I'm proud of. I took my punishment. I got a day off without pay. But in hindsight, I slowed at the intersection, thought I had control of the intersection. What I didn't see was a car hauler at the intersection blocked my view of an open lane of travel. So the car that hit the truck, was coming from behind that car hauler. And so our department policy is to stop at all stop signs and red lights. And I failed to do that. And, I'm thankful that it wasn't a more serious accident, but it definitely could have ended differently that day. And I'm grateful that it didn't. But I like to use that as a teaching moment to all the drivers out there to use your due regard, just like we're taught, and be sure you follow those policies and procedures. Stop at the stop signs and red lights, and be as safe as you can.
I try not to focus too much on the failures and rather try to take them as a learning curve to improve my style and leadership of who I am as a person. When I first came into this, I actually have zero experience and I didn't know what I was doing. All of the skills that I was learning was things that I was doing for the first time. So really just stepping up to the plate, learning how to tie knots, learning how to just basically perfect all of the skills that I knew that I was going to have to know coming into this job, and especially with the truck that I am on. So those were basically the things that I needed to perfect when I joined.
Probably getting frustrated and wanting to give up. Not letting my anger or temper get the best of me some days, or just not feeling like trying those days to always show up and most positive attitude and always keep trying.
I had a captain that was on his way out. He was close to retirement. and ultimately was a struggle, especially for a young, aggressive firefighter. And everybody has those in any department that you go to. I spoke with a friend of mine who retired out of the FDNY. He was a senior guy in Squad 288. Him and I talked for a very long time about this, and there were two kind of avenues that we could have taken, and that was either A, reporting it and taking it to the battalion, which is ultimately going to make a very discouraged employee, versus, trying to lead from the back, right? And not really as a leader, but a motivator. And ultimately, the captain showed up outside and would be there with us when we were training. And you don't have to be there and have your hands in everything. Just being there and showing that support is key.
As far as challenging leaders, again, it's kind of like we talked about earlier with making mistakes and learning from your mistakes. I actually think you learn more from your leaders that you've had problems with, or bad leaders per se, than you do good ones, because you learn what you don't want to be. I had a captain one time that I was with him for about a year and a half, and he was very roller coaster on emotions. I was his engineer, and he would come in one day and he would be riding high 10. Everything was awesome. He was one of the best people to work for and the best people to be around. The next shift he'd come in, he would be a 1 on the scale of 10, and he would have a bad day. Everything was terrible. And it was just really hard to work with somebody like that on a roller coaster, because you never knew what to expect. As an officer, it's really important to be even keel. People need to know what they can expect of their leader every time they come to work. Everybody's going to have a bad day every now and then, but it should not be a roller coaster like I experienced with that officer.
My most challenging leader I ever worked for was a bit of a micromanager. And I felt like I had to prove myself to him constantly. And I don't feel like that was really warranted. I feel like I knew my job really well at the time. And I don't really know where that came from him. But it was a challenge, because at one point I started questioning myself. Like, do I really know what I'm doing? But then I had to remember that this was his style of leadership, and I had to kind of go with the flow at the time, and just keep confidence in myself that I did know what I was doing.
I did have one leader, and he did have very high expectations, and sometimes he would give me a project, but really wouldn't give me a direction, and I got very little feedback. So at first it was kind of frustrating, because I wasn't always sure if I was meeting their standards, but it did push me to become more resourceful, and also a little bit more confident in making decisions.
As a leader, there's a lot of differences in the generations we're seeing in the fire department today. And our job is to make sure we're working those and melding together to have a good team. I think there's a lot of different ways to do that. But one thing you have to do is you have to learn about the other generations. One thing I like to do is give a motivational test, one I found from a book, where I can learn what motivates and demotivates different individuals on my shift and on my crews. I found that to be very successful, not only in my career, but also in my home life, because that'll work on your spouse, on your kids, learning what motivates them and demotivates them. But as leaders, we have to learn to accept change. The generation before us said we were terrible. The generation before them said these new staff coming in were terrible. It will always continue. There's nothing wrong with any of our generations coming in. We just have to learn how to deal differently with each one and take their best stuff. These new people coming in have more computer skills, more AI skills, which is the future of the fire service, than I'll ever have. So we need to learn from them and see what benefits them and how we can use them in our organizations and use their abilities to the best to help us.
So when I get a new crew, or a new person on the crew, I've developed through my years of not just being a captain, because I haven't been a captain all that long, but even as my years as lieutenant, I made notes and I remembered things of my captains and my not so favorite captains and how I would want to lead my crew. And I compiled those things into a one-page document of what my expectations would be and what my pet peeves are. And so when I get a new person on the crew, regardless of age, they get a copy. This is what I expect. This is what I don't like. And that way there's no shades of gray. They know exactly what I'm looking for, what I expect to happen. And while a lot of people talk about the younger generation being the difficult ones, I have also worked with those that are older than me. And not that it's more difficult. It's not. I don't want it to sound like it's difficult. But you have to meet them where they are. Whether they're older or younger, the younger generation is all about texting. The older generation, I know I have to make a phone call because he's not going to necessarily see my text in a timely manner. So I think it's really just a matter of learning your people, because they're going to be your family every third day, and meeting them where they are and adapting and making those changes to what they're comfortable with.
So currently I'm one of the youngest on my entire shift. So I feel like I kind of bring a little bit of that millennial Gen Z life to my shift. So, with, my parents and being just able to work with people that are older than me, I just try to really get to know them. Some of them are dads, some of them are uncles, granddads. Like, you just kind of start to bond with them in a sense that I have viewed them as just a bunch of other dads, a bunch of other father figures, and we can get along in that way.
The multiple generation thing is a very big topic in the fire service. I mean, you can pull article after article up about it. We're getting the kids in that are the iPad kids, 18 years old, that have no life experience, all the way to a guy who is 45 years old and decides he wants to be a firefighter because he's tired of mowing yards every day. So really, a leader in the fire service needs to understand those different types of generational skills that those people possess. You may bring somebody in who's 45 years old and mowed lawns their whole yard or whole life, and they're really good at handiwork, versus the 18-year-old kid we just hired and fresh out of the academy may be able to show you something when it comes to software or computer work. You have to be very careful being respectful in today's time, because people can take it different ways. Something that I picked up, a company officer in a department very close by, every person that he has come into his truck when they leave, whether it's promotion, demotion, firings, or just bidding out, he has them type up a little small paper to the next employee that's coming to that truck that kind of lays out what they thought the expectations of the captain was. So when I get somebody new in, I hand them this book. It's got my expectations, but then there again, it's also got what other people have experienced over time. The biggest thing is, and something that we fail in the fire service, is setting those expectations every morning, especially if you've got somebody that's not currently assigned to your truck. A lot of times we get caught up with coming in and getting a cup of coffee and talking about the experience we had the past 2 days off, and we fail to give those expectations first thing in the morning, which is ultimately setting us up for failure.
I think the traditional values are very important, but I think that we can blend those with new approaches and more innovative ideas and still make everybody feel valued and supported. Well, I will say I grew up as a firefighter's child, so I kind of grew up in the fire service, and I looked at a lot of those, the older guys, with deep respect. But I do feel like when I go out into the community, it's very important to have the department's values in mind and to go out with integrity and professionalism with anything that I'm doing. And also to be aware of my actions and decisions to make sure that I do set a good example for others in the department.
I intend in the future to build my crew's culture with being open and honest with each other. Any kind of traditional values that my department has, I would like to keep that going, with also still having like the open mind that younger people will still be coming in. People are going to retire out. Just kind of trying to keep the family culture going while still be able to maintain proper training, and keeping the roles and the expectations still there per truck, per captain, per shift, making sure that we keep the culture here tight, but also still being willing to work with people that are different than us.
I would say go back to the golden rule. Treat others as you want to be treated. It doesn't get any more simple than that. Um, as to those that are wanting to climb the ladder, what it feels like when you're treated well by a good captain and when you're treated not so well by a less desirable captain. You know what that feels like. So remember that and grow from that, and use your strengths, use everyone's strengths around you. You're going to learn what their strengths and weaknesses are, and everybody's going to work together, and it takes a team. I'm who I am because of who I work with. And I like to think that it's reciprocal, really.
My biggest recommendation really is to embrace humility, and also have a willingness to listen and learn along the way. Leadership is not about knowing everything. It's about asking questions, listening to the answers, and also surrounding yourself with good people who can help kind of teach you and help you grow as a leader. I do feel that it is important to grow strong relationships and trust. I do feel like everybody wants to work for a leader who they feel supports them, trusts them, and values them as an employee. But it's also in the way the fire service is changing. Being adaptable is very important nowadays. You never know what you may face on a day-to-day basis, so it's important to be open-minded.
Starting in my career, 18 years old, I would always let things, ride on my heart. Somebody was to say something, I'll take it straight to the heart. I've learned to let it get in one ear and out the other, and that's very key in the fire service, especially as a young leader. And there was a Facebook post that was posted from Fit to Fire, or it is Fit to Fight Fire. And it's a little saying from Benjamin Martin that says one of the most dangerous things that you can do in the fire service is give a crap. And that's ultimately a case. When you show up caring about your job, especially for the people that you work alongside you, inadvertently someone will twist your actions and words to cover up their insecurities. And that happens a lot. So you have to be very careful, and ultimately keep your head down. It's your career, it's your path. Don't let anybody deter it.
I think the best thing they can do, number one, is find a good leader to be their mentor. I think mentors in the fire service are huge. And I think the people that have had good ones, you can really tell because they move up in the fire service quicker and they are better leaders because somebody has taken that chance on them, going out of their way to help them. So I think finding a good mentor is huge. But I also think taking initiative. A lot of people lack initiative nowadays. That's an issue I think we're seeing across the board, not just in the fire service, but nationally. And it's not a problem. It's just some of these people are not taking the initiative we need. So take the initiative, get out there, learn, go take your certification classes, go work on your degrees, go work on things that is going to make you better.
The adaptation to everything. Technology has really increased the production of different things that we have to combat in the fire service. My father was a firefighter in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, and the evolution of things seemed a lot slower in his time versus what we have with us. And a good example of that is in Station 10's area, we've got 3-story townhomes, and all the living is on the 3rd floor. And every single one of them in every garage, it seems they have a Tesla. And everybody should know now that that's causing a lot of fires, and then a lot of fires you can't combat as a firefighter. So if someone isn't staying up and proactive when it comes to their career and the evolution of things, in the fire service, it's going to hurt us in the next 5 years.
I say communication. Communication's constantly a struggle. And if you don't stay in front of it, you get behind and you get run over and people get left. So, I mean, some people read emails, some people read text messages, some people, with our TV boards, our, dashboards and stuff like that. I think constantly you need to make sure that everybody is constantly getting those messages and getting that information through with Captain Verbal, with looking at it on an email, with hearing it. So I say communication is constantly something that we have to continue to work on every day in the past, present, and future.
So right now, I do believe with the changing workforce, the things that the fire service, it seems like, they are doing more and more nowadays. The recruitment and retention is becoming a little bit more difficult. I know whenever we opened our new station about 10 years ago, we didn't have quite the number of people that we had, 15 years ago that wanted to apply to be a firefighter. So I do think that getting out in the community and focusing on attracting and developing new generations of firefighters, getting into the community school systems and high school programs, and investing on training and educating the public, or finding new ways to engage into those communities are big.
Nationally and locally in the fire service, I think there are a lot of issues coming up. I think first and foremost for anybody is technology. The way technology changes and the way it's changing daily, monthly, yearly is unbelievable. Stuff that happened I would never have thought to seen in my lifetime happen every day. So that I think is going to be our number one challenge, along with paying for these new technologies because they're out there. Think about AI. Do we know how to use it? How much is it going to cost our department to implement? I think it is going to be huge in recruitment and retention for having good AI skills, but it's something a lot of us don't have that we need to invest in. I also think another one's going to be nationally with this OSHA, how it's going to play out. Is it going to become a law? Is it going to be incorporating the NFPA standards, the 22 standards that it's written to? I think that's something the National Volunteer Fire Council is really working on right now. And myself and former Executive Director Tim Bradley from the North Carolina State Firefighters Association serve on the NVFC, and we're actually serving on a panel that's working on that pretty much daily, weekly. We're having meetings on trying to figure out how to incorporate the best practices without making 22 NFPA standards law.
I think recruitment and retention seem to be an ongoing issue, and unfortunately, I don't know how that's going to change in the next 5 years. We certainly do what we can for increased pay and increased benefits. Some departments have changed shift schedules, claiming there's more sleep time or time at home, better for our physical fitness. But at the end of the day, it really comes down to being a passion, I feel like, and it's hard to find those people. And a lot of times they don't know what the emergency services entail. So I'm afraid that recruitment and retention is going to continue to be a problem for us.
Like many other jobs, I think AI is going to be a big one. That's kind of no shock, not just with us, but with other jobs as well. It will be up to every department whether we want to embrace it or kind of try to fight it. AI can be used and helpful for things like trying to dispatch us to calls, maintaining call volume and for communication purposes, but it could also hinder us in a sense that nowadays we can get a lot of false alarm 911 calls. So it's a bittersweet thing that I think that is something that we would have to figure out if we want to embrace it or not, and kind of take it day by day.
I think future officers, some good things to think about in the future would really be finding out what you're good at. Find a niche in the fire service. Everybody's got areas that all departments have something that they need. Find what your department's lacking. Find that niche that you can help out with, that you can grow and help your department grow. And anything you can do to make your department better, make yourself better, is only going to make the team better. And I think our future officers are going to need to do that. And one other thing I think that they're going to need to work on and think about, and it involves technology, is strategies and tactics. You know, the fire service is changing. We don't see the fires that we used to see 20 years ago when I first got into business, or even 40 years ago when other people were into business, even up to 50 years ago when, you know, a lot of our boomers that are getting out of the fire service now, they used to have fires once, twice a week, sometimes every night at busy fire departments. We don't have that now. So our next generation of leaders are having to depend on simulations and, you know, learning from books. Not that that's a bad thing, but I think simulation is the future for leaders. So if you can find classes that'll help you in strategies and tactics and help you on emotional skills, because I think emotional intelligence is the way of the future for firefighters, officers, and future fire chiefs.
My final piece of advice, I guess, would be just to embrace that challenge of being a leader, and continue to raise the bar in this line of work. You know, every single day is different. There's always going to be something new to learn, no matter what your rank is. You could be in this career for 1 year, you could be in this career for 20 years. There will always be something to learn. So make sure that you always stay humble and not get a big head.
Enjoy what you do, first of all. If you don't enjoy what you do, then you can't do it well. And like I said before, just communicate with your crew. As long as they understand where you're coming from and they understand what your expectations are and they understand what pushes your little red button, then, you know, you're all going to be able to work together.
So I think just kind of harping on really listening, I feel is one of the best things that you can do to grow as a leader, to gain trust and to gain support for your team. And also that's really more important, I feel, than the expertise that you may have in your field. It is important to be patient. Growth does take time, but also never be afraid to seek out to those that may have expertise or those that may have been in your situation prior to see what challenges they may have faced and how they overcame those challenges. But still kind of keeping your community as the main focus, and then everything should kind of fall in place.
Don't low down in your older age. Constantly keep moving. Even if you, like I like to work out and I do athletic events. Even if my times have slowed down, I still constantly get up, show up at the start line and, you know, compete in the races. Don't slow down just because you're getting older. Don't think, oh, I'm going to put myself out to pasture. Constantly keep motivated, keep going, and stay young at heart.
The biggest thing to remember is it's your path, it's your career, and don't let anybody change the thought process that you want or will have, period.
We hope you've enjoyed this special today. We've looked at the challenges that our fire service faces in the state of North Carolina and how the up-and-coming leadership are starting to be able to address them. Also, we've seen some lessons that we can practically take away to improve our personal leadership skills. So as we always say here on All Clear, light your power within.